It was as if the spirits of children long gone were reliving their last moments on this cursed ride. In a panic, they turned to leave, but the entrance gate slammed shut, trapping them inside the nightmarish carnival. As they tried to force their way out, the atmosphere grew oppressive, as if unseen hands were pressing down on them. A chorus of children's laughter filled the air, echoing from all directions. "They want to play," Mark said, his voice quivering. "Who?" "The spirits?" Sarah asked, her skepticism replaced by fear. Chris nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. "We have to find a way to appease them, to set them free." But the malevolent presence of the spirits was palpable, and it seemed they had no intention of letting their newfound playthings escape. They moved on, searching for clues, for anything that might offer an explanation or a way out. The rides and attractions came to life, twisting and contorting in unnatural ways. The haunted house, in particular, seemed to leer at them with a sinister grin, inviting them inside. With trepidation, they entered the darkened maze of the haunted house. The walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, and the air grew icy cold. The disorienting twists and turns led them deeper into a nightmarish realm. Inside the haunted house, the group encountered horrors beyond imagination. Grotesque figures leaped out from the shadows, their laughter echoing in the narrow corridors. Time lost its meaning as they stumbled through a labyrinth of fear. Sarah, normally the most composed of the group, was the first to succumb to the relentless assault on their senses. She screamed as a ghastly apparition materialized before her, its skeletal hands reaching out. Mark pulled her away, but the encounter left her trembling and inconsolable. The haunted house seemed to feed on their deepest fears, manifesting their nightmares in horrifying forms. Lisa, who had always been sensitive to the supernatural, saw visions of her deceased grandmother, her kindly face twisted into a grotesque mask. But it was Chris who faced the most chilling apparition. As he rounded a corner, he came face to face with a spectral child, her eyes hollow and filled with sadness. She held out her hand, and Chris, compelled by an otherworldly force, reached out to touch it. A surge of cold energy coursed through him as he saw visions of the carnival in its heyday. The child's laughter filled his ears as he watched her ride the carousel, innocent and carefree. Then, the vision shifted, and he witnessed a terrible accident, the carousel spinning out of control, the children screaming in terror. The group finally emerged from the haunted house, shaken to their core. They had glimpsed the tormented past of the carnival, the tragedy that had bound these restless spirits to this cursed place. "We have to help them," Chris said, his voice determined. "We have to find a way to free them." "We have to help them," Chris said, his voice determined. "We have to find a way to free them." But as they ventured further into the carnival, they realized that the spirits were not interested in being helped. They were trapped in a nightmarish loop, reliving their final moments for all eternity, and they had no intention of letting the intruders escape. As the night wore on, the group grew increasingly desperate. They attempted to communicate with the spirits, to plead for their release, but the malevolent entities only responded with more torment. It was Lisa who made a fateful decision. She had always been sensitive to the supernatural, and she believed she could communicate with the spirits. In a desperate bid to save her friends, she offered herself as a vessel, allowing the spirits to enter her and speak through her. What followed was a chilling conversation between the living and the dead. The spirits, once children full of joy, had become twisted and malevolent in their captivity. They had no desire for release. They reveled in the suffering of the living. As the night wore on, the group's hope dwindled. They were trapped in a never-ending nightmare, pursued by malevolent spirits that seemed intent on driving them to madness. The carnival itself had become a nightmarish realm, its attractions morphing into grotesque, living nightmares. The Ferris wheel spun out of control, its rusty frame groaning and screeching as it threatened to break free from its moorings. The haunted house seemed to grow larger with each step they took, its corridors twisting and shifting, trapping them in an ever-changing labyrinth of horror. Sarah, Mark, and Chris were exhausted, their nerves frayed to the breaking point. They had seen and experienced things that defied explanation, and they were haunted by the knowledge that they might never escape this living nightmare. And then, in the darkest hour of the night, a glimmer of hope appeared. Lisa, who had offered herself as a vessel for the spirits, began to speak. But it was not the voices of the malevolent entities that emerged from her lips. It was the voice of a single, tormented child, a child who had been trapped in this cursed place for decades. The child's voice was filled with sorrow and longing. She begged for release, for freedom from the eternal torment that had consumed her. She told them of a way to break the curse, to appease the spirits and set them free. The child's words were their only hope. She spoke of a forgotten ritual, a way to appease the malevolent spirits and release them from their torment. But it would not be easy. The ritual required them to confront their deepest fears and make a sacrifice that would test their loyalty and resolve. As they embarked on the ritual, the carnival itself seemed to come alive, the rides and attractions twisting and contorting in response to their actions. The spirits, once tormentors, now watched in anticipation. Each member of the group faced their own trials. Sarah had to confront her skepticism and admit the existence of the supernatural. Mark had to face the consequences of his thrill-seeking nature, the reckless decisions that had led them here. Chris had to make a painful sacrifice, giving up something he held dear to appease the vengeful spirits. And then it was Lisa's turn. She had offered herself as a vessel for the spirits, and now she had to prove her loyalty to the living. She had to confront her own fear of losing control, of being consumed by the malevolent entities she had allowed into her. As the ritual reached its climax, the carnival seemed to hold its breath. The spirits watched in silence as the group completed their trials, their malevolence giving way to a glimmer of hope. With the ritual complete, the carnival's malevolent energy began to dissipate. The rides and attractions returned to their dormant state, the nightmarish visions fading away. The child's voice, once filled with sorrow, now spoke with gratitude. The spirits, trapped for so long in this cursed place, were finally free. They passed on to the afterlife, leaving behind a carnival that had been consumed by darkness. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, the group emerged from the carnival, exhausted and shaken but alive. They had faced unimaginable horrors and confronted their deepest fears, and they had emerged from the ordeal forever changed. But as they looked back at the abandoned carnival, they couldn't help but wonder if the malevolent spirits were truly gone. The carnival stood as a testament to the darkness that could consume even the most innocent of places, and they knew that its legacy would live on in their nightmares for years to come. As the group left the carnival behind, they believed they had broken the curse and freed the malevolent spirits. The morning sun bathed the abandoned amusement park in a deceptive serenity, and they felt a sense of relief wash over them. However, their relief was short-lived. That night, as they slept in their respective homes, They were tormented by a shared dream and unending nightmare that transported them back to the cursed carnival. In the dream, the carnival was alive with malevolent energy, and the spirits, far from being appeased, were more vengeful and relentless than ever. They pursued the group through the nightmarish landscape, twisting their deepest fears into horrifying reality. Sarah found herself trapped in a never-ending maze of haunted mirrors, each reflection more grotesque and menacing than the last. She couldn't escape the relentless pursuit of her own distorted reflections, and her screams echoed through the carnival's desolate corridors. Mark was thrust onto the out-of-control Ferris wheel. His laughter turned to agonized cries as he was spun higher and higher into the night sky. The rusty frame groaned and screeched, threatening to break apart at any moment. Chris was surrounded by spectral children, their eyes hollow and filled with malice. They dragged him toward the cursed carousel, their laughter a cacophony of madness as they forced him onto one of the twisted, demonic horses. And Lisa, who had once offered herself as a vessel for the spirits, now found herself possessed by a malevolent entity. She was no longer in control of her own body, forced to do the bidding of the vengeful spirits. And Lisa, who had once offered herself as a vessel for the spirits, now found herself possessed by a malevolent entity. She was no longer in control of her own body, forced to do the bidding of the vengeful spirits. The dream felt like an eternity, an unending nightmare from which there was no escape. As the first light of dawn broke, the group awoke, their bodies drenched in sweat, their hearts pounding with terror. But the nightmare was not confined to their dreams. They soon realized that the malevolent spirits had followed them back to the waking world, their presence growing stronger with each passing day. The carnival had not been freed from its curse. It had merely extended its reach into their lives. The spirits, now more powerful and malevolent than ever, tormented them day and night, driving them to the brink of madness. And so, the group found themselves trapped in an unending nightmare, unable to escape the malevolent spirits that had once haunted the abandoned carnival. The horror had followed them home, and there was no respite, no sanctuary from the relentless torment. As the days turned into weeks, their minds deteriorated, their sanity slipping away like grains of sand through their fingers. They became shadows of their former selves, their lives consumed by fear and despair. The carnival had claimed them, body and soul, and there was no escape from the unending nightmare that had become their reality.
I'm an icon, man. I'm a girl about a 10. I should fuck her in a Benz.